Welcome to another episode of the Let's Think About It podcast. I'm your host, Coach Mo, and I'm here with another amazing guest, and her name is Kisha Wynter. What's up, Kisha?
I'm doing good. How are you, Mo?
Oh man, I'm awesome. We're here after the 4th of July. I hope you had a great 4th of July.
Yes, it was very relaxing here in the Northeast. I'm in Connecticut, so it was nice and warm.
Exactly. And that's one thing that I always ask my guests when they come on, where are you tapping in from? And you say Connecticut.
Yeah, I'm in Stamford, Connecticut, about 40 minutes north of New York City. So I'm in the New York tri-state area. Yes. I always say the forgotten state in the tri-state because everybody remembers about New Jersey, but nobody remembers about Connecticut. We're on the north side.
Absolutely. And what's one thing that you love about Connecticut?
It's interesting. That's a really good question. My last name is Winter. However, I don't love the winter. It's very ironic because I was born in Jamaica. I'm an island girl, grew up in Fresno, California. So I do the warm weather. But I have lived now in Connecticut for the majority of my life. And I am beginning to love the seasons. I love the fall. So I love the change of seasons in Connecticut. And I also live close to the beach, and I'm a beach lady. So those are the two things that I love about. I could go on and on, but yeah, I'm beginning to love Connecticut more and more.
Wait, I heard you say Jamaica
Yes.
and the Olympics is around the
Oh,
corner,
yes, yes, yes,
right?
yes,
So it's
yes,
all
yes,
eyes on the Jamaican sprinters. The women has been
yes,
dominating,
yes, yes.
dominating.
They have been dominating. So yeah, it's going to be a tight competition between the US and Jamaica. But you know what? I look at it this way. I'm also an American citizen, so I win either way.
That's right. That's right. That's right.
I will say that I love on the American side, I love Sha'Carri Richardson's comeback because she had the last time around she didn't get to go to the Olympics. So I'm also rooting for her as well. But yeah, always have my vote for Shelly and Fraser and Elaine. Actually, I think Elaine had to drop out due to an injury, unfortunately, but it will be a tight competition and it will be
Yes.
great to see in the Olympics.
Yes. So what I'm going to do now is I want to get into you because I'm
Yes.
curious. I understand you're a leadership consultant. So tell us about your journey and how you arrived at becoming a leadership consultant.
It's a really good question, Mo. I worked in human resources for a Fortune 500 company for 20 years. And really, the majority of my time in corporate, I was actually doing coaching and development for leaders. I work for General Electric, which are very well known for their leadership development tracks. And so I had a passion for that. That's how I ended up in the career. I consider myself a lifelong learner. I'm all about personal development. And it's interesting how I ended up transitioning specifically into coaching, executive coaching, is because early in my career, I wanted to advance personally. Every time you go to that next level as a coach, you hit an internal limiting belief. Maybe the
Yeah.
limiting belief is that you don't belong or you're not good enough or you're not qualified or you're too young. Like not good enough, too young, not qualified, were all the things I struggled with. And so every time, sometimes people have more faith in you than you have for yourself. And
Yeah.
I'll never forget when I went to this interview, and I can go into the details later on the interview, but bottom line, I went into so much self-doubt and fear in the interview that I had, what I'm now calling an imposter syndrome attack.
Yep.
And the leader, the CEO, it was my first time having a one-on-one conversation with a CEO, and I was being interviewed. And at the end of the day, he got me water. I calmed myself down, was able to finish the interview. And surprisingly, I got the job. However, because I'm not feeling good enough, not feeling that I was qualified and not belong, it started to derail me. And I said to myself, you know what? I'm going to keep going to the next level. I'm ambitious and I'm driven, but I don't want every single time I try to go to the next level, I have this imposter syndrome attack. How can I address it? And that's when I started reading a lot of books. I literally I think I went to my first Tony Robbins conference after that.
Okay, okay.
And then through Tony Robbins conferences, I signed up I paid for a coach. And the coach helped me remove some of my limiting beliefs and fears.
Yep.
And I said to myself, wow, like they really helped me. I want to be able to do this to other people. And that's when while I was in corporate, I went in and I went to CTI and got my coaching certification. And then the rest is history. But that's how I got into it.
We actually have just the same parallels in how we approach coaching because I went through something very similar. It was maybe about 14, 15 years ago, something like that. But I had lost my job. Me and my wife was actually coming back from our first year anniversary, right?
Wow.
That Monday, I got the pink slip. I lost my job, got laid off, whatever you want to call it. And I don't remember how I got connected with this coach, but she just started working with me, right? And just what you said, I was carrying these limiting beliefs, feeling really down on myself, had this fear of even trying to put myself out there, just like, just really down. But then she moved me out of that space. And just like you said, I want to help people who are in situations that I was in get out of that rut to be able to propel forward. And that just always stuck with me until I took those steps and became a professional coach. So
So
yeah,
much in common. We coach on whatever we struggle with. That's what they say. So yeah, I love that you have that in common, that we share that in common.
yeah, absolutely. Tell us about what was it for you as you really elevated and you said to yourself, maybe it was in General Electrics and you identified, yeah, I'm gonna do this after you went through Tony Robbins and all the things. How did you start to determine coaching is gonna be it for me moving forward? What was that?
It started on an individual level, right? Transformation starts within. And I say this about even with my practice, I work with people, first of all, to help them identify what differentiates them and really to step up and do good in the world. But that good that they want to do in the world has to start with having the courage to look within. And so I role model that without forcefully because of what the situation I went through. It was a wake-up call to me to say, you know what? If I'm going to advance, I've got to deal with these inner demons, feeling like I didn't belong because obviously somebody referred me to the job. Somebody believed that I was good enough to be interviewed. Somebody gave me, another person I had 4 or 5 people that recommended me and and invested in me. And yet somehow I still had this inner feeling that I didn't have enough experience. And so when I showed up and when that happened to me, and then I went through coaching and started reflecting and started experiencing the transformation, I began to speak to a lot of people in my organization. And I realized that men, women, people of all backgrounds had this inner critic, this inner voice. It wasn't just me. And so the other piece of it was just like on the one-on-one basis. Once I went through my coaching certification, I literally remember sending an email out to my whole organization. Hey, I have to get my 100 hours of coaching. So who wants coaching with me?
Oh my
Listen,
goodness.
I didn't realize there was so much hunger for it because I sent out this email to like crazy me. Like I didn't even know any better. Like, why you send it out to 500 people? Like within 30 minutes, my calendar, I'm like getting like hundreds of emails and I'm having these one-on-one coaching conversations. And it was what I loved about that organization is that it was a global org because they were developing leaders. Even though we were all located in the US, they were developing leaders to send them back to their home countries across the world to be leaders in those countries for wherever GE had a footprint. And so I had people from obviously the US, Canada, Latin America, Africa, like different countries in Africa, in Europe, all over Asia and Australia, like everywhere. And all of that, like all of us had this thing in our head. We're not good enough. We don't belong. And so having these one-on-one coaching conversations made me realize that we had so much in common.
Yep.
But what made me, so it was one-on-one, so interpersonally, personally within myself. And then the third piece was I realized the old way of leadership in corporations was this command and control, and you do what I say. That was really popular in the early 2000s. And based on what you just said 15 years ago, you know what that leadership style was. And I realized that people that are younger, millennials and the younger Gen X's, that's not how we wanted to be led. And so I connected the dots and I said to myself, how about instead of command and control, you have a coaching style as a manager, as a leader? So I approached the facilitators that had trained me, because I was still early in my coaching journey, and asked them to come to the organization and help us train managers on how to be coaches as leaders. Now, they weren't going to go through coaching certification, but we're going to teach them coaching skills like deep listening, right? Powerful questions, all the things that we learn in coaching
Yep.
school. And them just going through one day of manager, it changed. Like managers came back and they were like, we will never tell anybody anything. We're going to hold them as naturally creative, resourceful, and whole. We're going to invest. And you could see the shift in the organization. Yep. Everything didn't change overnight, but you could see that mental shift. And I said to myself, wow, coaching, if we really had a coaching mindset in corporate, we literally could change the world. And so I think it was all three things. It was a personal transformation. It was a one-on-one interpersonal, but then the organizational impact of coaching. I said, okay, like coaching can solve everything. And then I was all in.
Yes. Man, I'm telling you, Kisha, we have very similar paths, because I did exactly the same thing for the state agency that I work for. Same exact thing. When I was going through my cohort program and getting certified, you need to get these coaching hours, right? We need to get these coaching hours. I went to my organization. I was like, hey, I got to get these coaching hours. I got to get some coaching. I need to practice. And I put it out there. And next thing, I'm coaching all of these executives, attorney generals in my state organization. And then I was like, you know what? Maybe we need coaching in the department. Maybe I should be really creating a coaching and career development unit. And so that's exactly what I did. That's exactly what I did, right?
Wow.
And so it's powerful. It's powerful. Everything that you said, I'm in 100% alignment with you, because that's exactly what I'm doing for the agency that I work for. But here's a question that I have to ask you, because you mentioned imposter syndrome, the inner critic, right?
Yes,
and that's a lot of the foundation of what I talk about on my podcast.
Yes.
So what's your approach when you're working with your clients, and how you help them overcome this inner critic, imposter syndrome, and what they're dealing with? What's your approach to helping them overcome that and get through it?
Yeah, that's a really good question. And I have some general, but then customized depending on how it's showing up for each person and what they're going through. But the first thing I tell them is that the inner critic is what I call it. It's not, we think it's true. We think what the inner critic is saying is facts. Right. And the truth, that it is not facts. So I describe it as this nagging, shaming, criticizing voice that shows up when we're trying to step outside of our comfort zone and when we're trying to play big. So if you listen to the implications of that, actually, I said what it means is that it is not something to be ashamed of. It is something to celebrate, because it's showing up, because you're doing something new, you're stepping out, you're trying to play big. And it is a result of that fight or fight response that is activated because we are fearful, because it's new. And so the first thing I say to people, reframe it. It's not something to be scared of. It's actually something to celebrate and be excited about, because you're learning and growing.
Exactly.
You're not resting on your laurels. You're feeling imposter syndrome because, so my example was, this was the first time I was having a one-on-one conversation with a CEO, an officer of a multi-billion Fortune 500 company. And this guy, he had the voice of Morgan Freeman. He was literally the biggest presence. He spoke and his voice echoed, and it was great. Like under normal circumstances, I probably would have been like, but I was just like, this guy is so big and so intimidated, and I'm so small, and I don't like
Right.
he's gonna see that I'm insignificant. So I started shrinking and wanted to basically just disappear in my chair. And in the moment, because he was just like, are you okay? Because he asked me to tell me about my background and all that. And I opened my mouth and that dry,
Yeah.
I couldn't speak. So he got, are you okay? He got me some water, nice leader. And I drank. And while I was drinking the water, I thought to myself, I was just like, okay, all right. I'm probably going to screw this interview up at this point because clearly I can't speak. What happened for me in that moment that caused me to shift? I connected with a value. And we do values work. And
Yeah.
one of my deepest values is learning and growth. And I said, if nothing else, this is the first time I'm doing an interview. This is the first time I'm having a conversation. So guess what? Even if I screw up and I don't get this opportunity, now I learn and grow from this experience. So because of that reframing and focusing on my values, it de-escalated the intensity of the moment. And I just began to focus on how I'm going to learn from this experience. So then I started engaging with him, and then it went fine at the end of the day. And so
And
that's
then
what
it
I
just,
tell my clients. Is I'm like, find a value that becomes so motivating and so powerful to you that it makes your fear shrink.
absolutely. Absolutely. I like the word that you said is,
You frame.
right?
Mm-hmm.
And those moments when you are triggered by the fear, and this is something that I really pound in with my clients as well. When you feel that trigger of fear coming on, maybe that's the trigger to be confident in that moment. Maybe that's the signal of it telling you now is the time to be confident and move forward, and not the other way of being afraid, scared, annoyed, whatever that fear and how that emotion of the fear comes to you. But maybe it's the trigger to be confident and courageous and brave in those moments.
Yeah. Yeah. And I love the fact that you said courageous, because people think that courage means to not feel fear, but it's
Right.
actually to feel fear and do it anyway. You can't be courageous if you don't feel any fear. So I said, it's like normalize and destigmatize fear. Fear is just a reflection that you're doing something that's uncomfortable for you. And the more you do it, the better you're going to get and the less the fear is going to be. So a lot of leaders, I work with a lot of leaders on communication, and they'll be presenting for the first time to a senior leadership team or a board, right? Like this is feels like high stake to them. And I give the example of the first time I went on stage, and I'm like, instead of focusing, if you make it all about you and focusing on your performance, especially if you're not a very extroverted, it's all about me type of person,
Right.
then yes, it's going to intensify because you're like, oh my God, if I don't perform well, what if I fail? So I give the example to them. I said, the first time interestingly enough, I was talking about imposter syndrome on stage.
Okay.
And the first time I did it was in front of 500 senior executives in a big corporation. And I remember feeling this, like my heart racing, my mouth drying up. And I said to myself, like my self-talk, and this is the other thing, turn your inner critic into your inner coach.
Yes.
That's because we talk to ourselves sometimes in such a harsh way that we would never speak to somebody that we love. And so I was like, think, if you have children, think about a child, think about somebody that you love. How would you be talking to them? And so I
Mm-hmm.
like literally, instead of saying you're not, what do you think you're good enough? Why do you think you deserve to be on the stage? So many people know more than you. No, I turned that into, first of all, it's okay that you don't feel 100% confident. But what's really, this is the powerful question that coaches ask, right? What's really important to you right now?
Yeah.
And I connect us like, you know what? I connected to a value, and I said to myself, I want to ensure that that's living below their potential, that I can be an example for them, that my words can help them step into their full potential and not play small. I want to
Right.
model what it looks like to play big. And so that value of contribution and service became bigger than the fear of failure or the fear of what people would think. And so that's what pushed me. And that's what I tell again, I go back to value and I go
Yeah.
back to taking the focus off of you and figure out what you want to bring to the conversation. What's the value? What do you want to contribute? How do you want to help people? And again, that makes it less scary because you're not focusing on how you're doing.
That's very important that you highlight values and the value activity that you mentioned early on when you brought this up. It's really important how us as coaches help our clients move forward and helping them identify what those values are for them so that they can connect it and have the awareness to know if I focus on this value, then it would help decrease the fear that I might be feeling in those moments, right?
Exactly.
What do you do to help create awareness for your clients to lean towards values? What type of activities are available for them to tap into
I
learning more
mean,
about their values?
there's a few exercises that you could do, and I'm sure you're aware of them. I will ask them questions around what are they doing, and when they're doing it, makes them feel fully alive. Or another easy one, that think about people that you really admire and tell
Mhm.
me why you admire them. And as you're
Yes.
going through, as you're going through and explaining all the things that they admire, then you're able to identify, oh, so you value authenticity. Authenticity is important to you. You value achievement. That's important. You value relationships, right? When you're listening to people's story, or I'll ask them the flip side of it. What are the leaders, what values or what characteristics in leaders really piss you off, like
Yep.
really irritate you? And then it's usually when they're stepping on just the opposite, when there's a values conflict. So I'll do that. There's quite a few exercises, but those are some of the things that I'll ask them. And as they're explaining and they're telling me their stories, then I'm able to uncover what their values are. And sometimes
Yeah.
because I prefer to go through the exercise rather than asking you what's important to you, because everybody has their list. When you begin to really, especially if there's an emotional connection, you know that those ones are the strongest ones.
Yeah. And then another approach that I take with the values is I would have them off the top of your head, what are 10 values that you feel are important to you? And then they'll list them and then I'll have them rank them. It will be the top five. And then that's where they would, I don't know, three and four are really tight, things like that. Or I have a value sheet with about 50 different values on them, and I have them go through it and check their top 10 and then rank them from that standpoint. And then that helps with the conversation and how they utilize the values to start to tie to the situation or whatever we're talking about.
I love it. And
Yeah.
usually when you do that with your clients and they really identify their values, some sort of shift in them, or
Yeah.
what happens?
And it goes back to what you said when we're having these conversations with them and there's a fear present, and us as coaches remind them of the values in that situation, the
Mm-hmm.
fear starts to diminish almost.
Yeah, instantly, instantly.
Yeah.
So, yeah, that's definitely, it's just amazing. So again, it's shifting away from the fear and focusing on what, you desire, because that's going to allow you to bring out your creative genius and really expand rather than shrink. Because that's what happens when self-doubt and fear shows up. It causes us to shrink from our brilliance instead of owning it and expanding and taking up space, which is what I'm all about when I work with my apps. Like, take up space. Like, you're here for a reason. Share your brilliance with the world. People need to hear your voice.
So share with me, who do you work with? Is it organizations or just individuals?
Yeah, really good question. There's a few aspects to my business. I do executive coaching and then leadership development and consulting. And so most of my clients come from within organizations. So the organizations will send them to me to get leadership and executive coaching. But I do work with people one-on-one as well. I have people that I know from the corporate world. They're like, okay, I just want to go to you directly. And then I work with senior leadership teams to coach the team. So I do team coaching as well, individual coaching, team coaching, and then also consulting around culture. And so I work with people of all backgrounds. I do have a group coaching program that is called Your Power Unleashed, which actually a book based on this program is coming out in September. And it's called, so it's Your Power Unleashed, How Savvy Women Use Courage to Get Promoted, Paid, and Find Fulfillment. And this came out of the work that I was doing in corporate, because I would hear consistently, now everybody, you're a guy, you have struggled in the past, you said it, with imposter syndrome, self-doubt, fear, we all struggle with it. However, when I was in corporate, I would hear this all the time specifically about women, that, oh, this woman is really smart and she has the domain expertise, she has the experience, but really we don't know if we can promote her to that next leadership level because she doesn't have this leadership presence. She doesn't exude confidence. She doesn't have this executive presence. And so we've got to, like, Kisha, go figure out how to help them be more confident. I'm like, you can't just go tell somebody. And so because of my own experience of dealing with this fear and self-doubt, I knew what it felt like. And I also have the experience now, having gone through coaching and becoming a certified coach. I had the tools and the experience. And so while I was in that organization, I designed a program. And that's my Your Power Unleashed program, where I help them learn how to navigate self-doubt, fear, imposter syndrome, sabotage mechanism, and how to really step into their bold, audacious, courageous self.
Man, that's awesome. That's awesome. What's the book title?
So it's called, and even though it's geared towards women, honestly, it's for everybody. Okay. But the title is Your Power Unleashed, How Savvy Women Use Courage to Get Promoted, Paid, and Find Fulfillment. So that's the awesome subtitle. But awesome. The main title is Your Power Unleashed. And it's, unleash the power within. Tony Robbins says this all the time, unleash that power within you. And that is what I help them do. And so what happens is, it just in that corporate setting, is that we tend to shrink from our power and from the brilliance that we bring. But once you learn how to navigate that doubt and fear and really step into your brilliance, then you can make the impact that you want to make in an organization. And so the second part of the book, I focus on, all right, now how do you navigate the organization? Because working hard is not enough. Like, you go put your head down and work hard, you're going to get ahead. No, actually, there are many different steps to this. Yes, delivering results, working hard is important, but you have to work on your brand. You have to figure out how to get visibility to the decision makers. You have to build your personal board of directors, the people that are going to advocate for you when you're not in the room, and open doors for you that you can't open for yourself. Like that interview that I got, I didn't get it on my own. My manager called the hiring manager and say, hey, like, Kisha's great because of her track record. You should hire her. And then other people that had worked with me in other capacity called that leader. And that's how I got the interview. And Black culture, we know this Medea. Medea says, I could do bad all by myself. No, right? No, we're not doing bad all by ourselves anymore. You need a community that will support you and help to lift you up and just make the journey a much more fun and easier. So that's what I talk about in my coaching programs and also in the book that's coming out in September.
That's amazing. That's great. How can people find you, though?
Great question. My name, Kisha Wynter, on LinkedIn. I'm everywhere. I'm actually primarily on LinkedIn, but also on Instagram. And then on my website, yourpowerunleashed.com. So that's the place people can find me. Okay,
so you got the book coming out. What else is happening for Miss Kisha?
Oh, so that's a good question. So right now my life is focused on this book. Okay. There are other things that are speaking engagements around the book, publishing, all the marketing, doing webinars. So there's a lot of work around the book right now. So that's really what's going on. But obviously I still continue to work with organizations in their leadership development and all the different things. Yeah.
That's awesome. So as we wrap up today, what's one lasting thought nugget, insight that you would like to leave the audience?
I love this question. One insider nugget. There's a quote, and I don't know who said this quote. I think I heard it from Les Brown, but I don't know if he came up with this quote. But he said, if there's no enemy within, the enemy outside can do us no harm.
Oh,
I love that.
I
I
love it
love
too.
that. I love that it is sometimes we're our own biggest enemy.
Yeah,
And there's a book that says the mountain is you. I've never read the book, but just the title alone. If we can eliminate that self-doubt and fear and break through it, then I think we will become unstoppable. So
absolutely. There it is. There it is. I appreciate you. I really do. You
it
are
was,
awesome.
oh my God, it was so fun talking to you today. I really enjoyed talking to you and your energy. And I hope we will be able to collaborate again.
Absolutely. I was just thinking I may have to get you back on in September to help get that awareness of that book,
Oh,
you
I would
know,
love to.
and
Absolutely. I
just
would
share
love
more
to.
insights and talk about the book. We may have to bookmark that for you to get you back on in September.
I would love to come back in September. That would be great and have even more amazing conversations.
Absolutely. Thank you for your time. I appreciate you. Have a good day.
All right. Thank you, Mo. Take care.